What warning did God give to Adam? We are going to ask that and more today on The Rooted Five. Welcome to week 2, day 3 of The Rooted Five. Today we're going to be reading Genesis 2, verses 10 through 17. But first, let's go over our memory verse, which we will read today. The Lord God placed the man in the garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. Again, that is Genesis 2, verse 15. The Lord God placed Adam in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. So day 3, we're going to start in verse 10, and this kind of gives a little bit of geography about the Garden of Eden. However, after I ask my first question, I want you to think deeply about what happens soon after creation. Maybe not soon after, but at least in the Bible, it happens just a few chapters later. So keep that in mind as you answer your first question. But chapter 10. A river flowed from the land of Eden, watering the garden and then dividing into 4 branches. The first branch, called the Pishon, flowed around the entire land of Havilah, where gold is found. The gold of that land is exceptionally pure. Aromatic resin and onyx stones are also found there. The second branch is called the Gihon, flowed around the entire land of Cush. The third branch, called the Tigris, flowed east of the land of Ashur. The fourth branch is called the Euphrates. So my first question, do you think these rivers are still there today? Why or why not? And verse 15, the Lord God placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. But the Lord God warned him, you may freely eat the fruit of every tree in the garden, except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat its fruit, you are sure to die. So question 2, what was man's job in the garden? Question 3, what warning did God give to Adam? It was just one thing that he had to remember. And question 4, this is a tricky one. Why do you think God did not want man having the knowledge of good and evil? Sounds kind of like a bad thing, right? That there was something God didn't want them to have. Was God trying to keep something from them? So why do you think he did not want man to have the knowledge of good and evil? And my last question, what will happen to man if he eats from this tree? And for my deeper dive, I'll never forget when I was around, I think I was only 7 or 8 years old, and I asked a pastor, if God already knows everything and already knew what was going to happen, why did he even make that tree? So that might be a good discussion with your kids. The older they get, the more they're going to grapple with that. You may even be grappling with that yourself, right? There are times I wonder that. But of course, that comes into account of free will. Did God make Adam a robot, or did he create him for a relationship with him? Think of how intimate it was when God created man, that he formed him, and that word formed is like a potter forming a pot, okay? And then breathed his own breath into Adam. Okay, so for God to take that kind of care in creating Adam and making him in his own image, obviously means God loved him and cared for mankind, and wants a relationship with him. So it comes to account that God did not create a whole bunch of robots, else he would have just created robots. He chose not to do that. But that might be something that you discuss with your kid, a deep dive is, why did God put that tree of knowledge of good and evil And what does it mean when God gives us a command? Those are all very hard and deep questions, but they're important because it shows us God's character and it shows us our standing with God. So hope you enjoyed day 3. I'll see you tomorrow for day 4.